أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. I seek refuge in Allah from shaitan the accursed, and I begin in the name of Allah, most gracious, most merciful. My name is Umar Abdullah. I'm the head of the Wajihatul Islamiyya, the Islamic Front, and I'm here once more today, being the 16th of February 2019, to speak about issues that generally affect us as a people and inhibits us to grow positively, and to develop. I want to start by stating a particular fact, and that is oftentimes we hear when people commit crimes, or people break the law, they have to stand the consequences of breaking the law. So in some cases, they'll be arrested and charged and taken before the courts. And most likely you'll be convicted of that particular crime and you'll have to serve your time in prison. If it's a capital offense, the cases where you were given life imprisonment or you're given the death penalty and so on. But questions are often asked as regards to the legitimacy of the agency itself, the government agency, government itself, in applying the rule of law, and whether or not they themselves are in breach of their own laws, and these agencies likewise. In an Islamic state, it is often said that the punishment for stealing is to cut off the hand of the thief. And it's something that modern day societies would scoff at and not really they would use it in an argument to say if it is we were doing that, there would be less stealing and less robberies and so on. If you look at the Muslim countries that apply this particular law, the instances where people steal and rob and so on, it's far less percentage. It's far less than we find in these developing countries and non-Muslim countries, as a matter of fact. So the cutting off of the hand. But what is important here to understand is that the Muslim state or the Muslim country that has this particular law cannot cut off that person's hands unless they first do an investigation to find out whether or not the state was actually or has actually provided or put in place all the mechanisms by which this person would have been able to get a proper job and to mind his family and so on, and empower this person so that this person could improve and develop and so on and so forth. And if these things are absent, the state cannot cut off his hand, because the state itself has a responsibility. And once they did not perform their responsibility, or they did not act on their responsibility in this respect, they cannot proceed to cut off the man's hands, because they first needed to make sure that those facilities or that particular those aspects was there, so that this individual could have been able to access the different mechanism that was placed there for him not to reach to the point of stealing or robbing anybody. So the question I'm asking is that the case in Trinidad and Tobago? And let's just focus on Trinidad and Tobago. Here's where we live, and here's where we're going to be for a very long time. So we have to make this place a better place, and we have to find out and figure out ways and means to get there. And we have to, create the strategies and so on, and establish those strategies within our communities. So recently we saw where individuals who were selling on the streets. In one instance, a guy was selling fresh produce, vegetables, and market produce on the streets in San Fernando, and his goods was carted away by the police. He was arrested, charged, and taken before the courts and so on. And just looking at the incident itself raised a lot of concerns amongst the citizens. So if you go on the social media, you'll see the numerous amount of comments that was made as regards to, the action of the police in this regard. And then more recently, on Valentine's Day, we had a number of individuals in the Port of Spain area. Their items were carted away as well. They were arrested, I think, and charged, taken before the courts and so on and so forth. I actually had conversations with some of these individuals, and they were actually charged in monies in the courts, and they were not able to get back. And if they did, they did not get back all of their goods and all of that. In the case of the man in San Fernando, his goods that was taken away from him, he did not get back all of his goods. And what was given back to him was more or less, went bad, dried up and so on. And he was not able to sell those goods anymore. So that was a loss. This man invested monies, bought, these goods, and was selling, earning an honest living. What he was doing was legal, selling, buying and selling a commodity that was legal. However, according to the law, where he was selling was unlawful. And the way in which he was operating his business and the area in which he was operating his business was against the law, and so too those individuals in Port of Spain. But let's just think for a moment here. All officers attached to the government agencies, the police, customs, fire, these different agencies and so on, they have something called discretionary power, the power of discretion. And it is rarely used here in this country. And discretionary power, the power of discretion, does go a very long way in solving much of our problems. And, easing the burden on society and easing the burden on our judiciary and, of course, the police service and other agencies of the government. So that's something I would want us to consider for a bit. Now, I am not saying and I'm not condoning wrong, but at the same point in time, I am not condoning wrong on behalf of the government and their agencies, because oppression is not constitutional. Oppression is something that is unlawful. It is illegal for any government, for any agency of government to oppress the people of a country. And that, in my view, is the real crux of this matter. Oppression of the poor class in this country, the people who are trying to make a living. These individuals, they would have come by some money. Some of them would have taken these goods on consignment from manufacturers or from larger businesses. And they would have, you know, the their intent was to sell these goods and make a profit so that they could continue to maintain their families, pay, their bills, send their children to school. They may have outstanding, accounts in the bank, or, these furniture and appliance stores and so on, like courts and so on. And imagine now that all that monies that was invested there was just carted away by the police, and these persons taken to court. Now, what I notice is that whenever a crime is committed, and CSI or whatever of the department or agency of the police would come to analyze the crime scene, they would very carefully document items found on the crime scene that is in relation to the crime, spent shells or, what have you, and so on. Somebody might have dropped an ID, a wallet, or something of the sort, and they would carefully take these items and package it and label it and document it properly, so that when they go to court, these things, they will be able to put forward their case perfectly well. I didn't see that in this instance. The police, documented what was taken from the individual, or were there any, attempt to tag those items in relation to who was the owner of those items. So obviously, when these items are carted away, all right, and the items are probably perhaps brought to court, that sort of thing, it is not clear whether or not those were the items that belonged to this individual. And what account is there that the police has, or what records that they have would indicate that Peter had X amount of items, and these items did in fact belong to Peter. There was a signature by Peter indicating that these items belong to him, and this sort of thing. So that I didn't see happen. And I understand that, in the past there were sometimes the police would have taken photographs and so on. I don't think that the police practiced that much again, and that certainly wasn't done in this instance. Right enough, the police indicated that they did pass and tell these individuals that they should move and not sell there where they were selling, and if they come back later, they would seize their items and the goods and so on. But indicating that to the citizens or the people who are selling, the vendors, is not actually solving their problem. Is not actually, helping them in any way, or helping the situation in any way. Because where are these people going to move? Where are they going to go and sell their items? The Port of Spain City Corporation, the San Fernando Corporation, City Corporation, or borough, as the case may be, what mechanism, or what has the city, or what has these agencies put in place for these individuals to acquire a space where they can viably conduct their business in a legitimate way? Sometimes in the market area, or the spaces provided by the city corporation, individuals in that space, they own numerous, or a number of different booths, and which they occupy, and so there's hardly any other space available for individuals who want to sell their produce or do their business or ply their trade. And when you go to these institutions and these agencies, the red tape, the length of time that it takes to facilitate someone who wants to do that, it's not viable for them. It's difficult. So continuously we see where the state makes life difficult for poor people in this country. Because there's nothing that a poor man could say that he can gravitate to alleviate his problem, to empower himself, and to take him out of that state of poverty. But we see where the big shots and the big companies, they get away with these same sort of things. As in the case with the recent comments being made about Kiss Baking Company trading on the Quilo and having all these people selling bread by the roadside. They're breaking every single law in the book. Every single law. Down to the employer-employee relationship laws that is constituted in our law books in this country. They're breaking those laws as well. These workers, they're not being, they're not being treated fairly, and they're not being, paid, proper wages and so on and so forth. And these carts that you see all over selling bread, are they, legally positioned? Like in the case of the guy whose goods was taken away on High Street in San Fernando and on the streets in Port of Spain, those persons in the streets in Port of Spain. So we see constantly where the poor man is constantly struggling and being oppressed at the same time. Where these huge companies, they get away with all these things that, that break the laws in our country. So we ask the question, where is the fairness and justice? Where is the fairness and the justice? And the city corporation tasked with the responsibility to ensure that persons who wants to vent and carry on a legal trade, buy and sell, that they ought to have spaces allotted in the city or in these areas where these persons can go and ply their trade. And also what needs to be taken into consideration is the plight of the people as well. Because you can't put them in a space where there are no traffic, where there isn't this thoroughfare where, people are constantly moving up and down and, passing through and so on, because it makes no sense. You're in an area, nobody comes there. So how much of this was ever taken into consideration and looked into, especially knowing the fact that you are going to be faced with this issue come Valentine's Day? You are like Christmas, when Christmas comes and, we have the carnival festivities coming up. What sort of provisions are made to safeguard those poor people who are going to end up on the street vending, who are going to be plying their trade? What mechanism is there? Well, are these agencies doing their job? Are they actually working for the people? Are they actually going and meeting these people on the streets where they are? For instance, a man may set up a table and have his goods on the table, and is there any state agency or any person responsible to go and meet with this individual and ask him for his necessary legal documents or legal papers, as the case may be? If it is he needs to get a peddler's license, if he needs to get this and that and the other, is there anybody to direct him, put him in that direction, or let him know, well, look, you can't do this, this is wrong, you need to do this particular way. We're going to help you, we're going to empower you, we're going to put you in the right in the right direction. Nothing like this happens. But we expect that the people is going to do the right thing. Poor people in this country. Think about it. These goods that was taken away from these people invested money. These are not rich people. These are poor people, already indebted. And you're putting them deeper in debt. What do you expect these people to do? What do you expect these people to do? Not going to, areas of crime? Are you facilitating growth? Are you facilitating the empowerment of our people? Are you facilitating taking people out of poverty? Or are you facilitating individuals becoming more poor, more indebted? Are you making life difficult for people in the homes? These things do affect the home psychologically. There are quarrels, there are fights in the homes. The children are abused as a result of it. The children are privy to these quarrels and fights because of the non-availability of money and the inability of the parent, the father and the mother, to care for the child and to give the child what the child wants or what the child needs, to educate the child properly. So we have these situations in the home that is created as a result of government's action and the agencies, their actions on the poor people, by making life difficult for them. Why should this country be like that? Why should our government and the police be like this? Some comments would be made that the police would be able to give their wives and girlfriends gifts now for Valentine's. The guy whose goods was taken, the first produced High Street in San Fernando, he didn't get back all of his goods. Where did those goods go? What happened with those goods? Is this right? Is this right for a developing country as ours? Is it right for state officials to do this to the poor people in this country? It's not right. The government, they are breaking the law when they oppress people in this country. They are breaking the law. And they do not give an account to nobody. Nobody calls them to account for this. It's high time that people call them to account for this. The magistrate, the judges, the policemen. This is wrong what you're doing to poor people in this country. Making life difficult for poor people in this country is oppression. And you're guilty of that oppression, the government. And I don't care which party is in power. Both past and present government, they do the same thing. They oppress the poor people. Come election time, what they do? They give out a lot of goodies and brainwash these individuals to come vote for them without even empowering these people. So you continuously give these, the population handouts, making them believe that you care for them and you're doing something for them. There's a old saying, you feed a man fish, you feed him for one day. You teach a man to fish, you feed him for his entire life. That is empowerment. Teaching him how to fish. What is the government and its agencies doing to teach people in this country and to provide properly for people in this country? writing of the police had indicated to the individuals, the vendors, that they're going to come back. And if they're not, if they're still there, they're going to, treat them in like manner. But where are these people going to go? Was there any provisions made? Did you indicate to them that they could have gone some particular place? You policemen, when you're out of your uniforms, let me tell you what you do. You pass by those vendors and you buy from them. The very same vendor that you would want to lock up when you're in uniform. You would buy and pass the vegetable, the stall in the street, they selling vegetables. On one occasion, you would lock him up. And the other occasion, you would buy from him. Double standard again. Hypocrisy. How many of you police officers, when you leave the police station at night and you go to the taxi stand, when taxis are not working, the H vehicles are not working at that hour, the P cars are working at that hour, and you jump in those P cars to get your ride home? How many of you policemen do that? But you want to charge them during the day for plying their vehicles for hire. But when you stranded on the taxi stand and you can't get a taxi, a H car, you quickly jump in the private vehicles to get your ride home because you want to get home. Double standards and hypocrisy. There's a lot that needs to be addressed in this country. And what is happening in this country is the very course those other countries with in deep problems today took. The very same journey, the very same course they took. What is happening in Venezuela? You know why the poor people were in support of Chavez? Because they were being given handouts. He wasn't necessarily empowering those people and educating those people and teaching them and creating opportunities for them to get themselves out of poverty. But the university students were seeing differently. So when they would go on the streets and they would protest because of his policies, the government would hire gangs, criminal gangs, to go into the crowd and shoot randomly and kill these university students because they were educated. They were free thinkers. And the government of this country are not allowing people to be free thinkers in this country. They want to continuously have people develop that dependency syndrome. And they don't want people to develop. They don't want the poor class to rise up and to become better. So they're not offering the poor class facilities. They're not offering them options, and they're not giving them the tools that they can use to get themselves out of that. How many of these individuals would owe the banks and they would owe the, would have debts here and there and so on? And now you've made it even worse for them because they have to find money to, in some cases, take a bail, take a lawyer, and they have to pay fines in court or face jail. What is happening to the family at that point in time? During this period, what is happening to the family? Is any government agency counseling these families and making sure that these families are well taken care of while the breadwinner of the home is imprisoned? That's not happening. That's not happening. So all I'm saying is that the government of Trinidad and Tobago, whoever you are, because past and different parties holding that seat of power, they do the same thing. You are oppressing the people of Trinidad and Tobago. and you're committing a crime. You're breaking your own laws. You're favoring the big shots and the huge companies in this country that are doing worse than what the poor man is doing. But the poor man is being arrested, his goods confiscated and carted away, and he's been locked up and taken before the courts. I ain't see nobody from Kiss Baking Company trading as Quaaludes before the courts as yet. I ain't see that happening. Would that ever happen? Would that ever happen? We have to be clear in our resolve, in what it is we want to achieve in this country, and where we want to go, and how we're getting there. We need to be absolutely clear. We need to work together. We need to involve each other in those decisions. All right? The police, the agencies, the government agencies, you need to use discretion when you apply the law. Because when you don't do that, we end up in a mess. You create problems within the family home, the family structure. And when there's a problem in the family structure, it's going to overspill into the community. And when it overspills in the community, it affects the entire country. Do you honestly believe that the issue of crime now in this country had nothing to do with government oppression and the state oppression and the tendency to oppress poor people in this country? Of course it had a lot to do with it. So they created that mess themselves. And now poor Commissioner Gary Griffith has to come and clean up their mess. Now he has to come and clean up their mess. And face ridicule on top of that. Having him to come to the press to make a statement to justify his actions. So now we see a young man who was held, one of the guys who was held, the so-called gang leader that was held the other day. He was released this morning. So, Gary Griffith has to answer to that. So you're holding people and locking them up. And these people now has the right to go and sue the courts and sue the state for compensation for wrongful arrest. What a mess this system of governance is creating. What a mess. Oppressors of poor people. Oppressors of the poor class. There's no way we can develop as a country, as a state. There's no way there's going to be that level of development if we continue like this. We're going to get worse. We are going to get worse. So whosoever is listening to this, please make sure that these agencies and persons heading these agencies look at this and let them take let them reflect on what actually they're about and what they're doing. And we see it happening all the time. These people who are vending and selling goods that they have invested in and so on, these are poor people. Where do you think they got the money from? Where do you think they got the money from? Who do you think they're going to? Who's going to be benefiting from this trade or the profits that they make? It's our future. It's our future generation, future children of this nation. of this country. Their wives, their mothers, their daughters, their sisters. The women who are so important to any society. You can't afford to break women in this country. We can't afford to discard them. We cannot afford to destroy them. That is exactly what we're doing. So I'm calling on the city corporations to do the right thing. Establish a space. Have discussion with the vendors. Establish a space where these persons can go and ply their trade or sell their goods and so on. And it must be in an area that, that is conducive, that will allow for the free flow of traffic and, people in and out and that sort of thing, and will create that bustling atmosphere where, they'll be able to sell their goods and produce and so on, and be able to make a profit and be viable amongst their peers in society. The agencies, these city corporations, these corporations are not doing that. They're all about politics, always playing politics. Always playing politics. Dressed up in jacket and tie, and I don't know what you're doing. Because year in, year out, you're faced with the same problem. And up to now, you can't solve that problem. Up to now, you cannot solve that problem. I am calling in the authorities. Do not ever treat with poor people in this country the way you're treating with them. Do not ever do that. Because you are creating a monstrous mistake that is going to bite you in years to come. It's going to bite you. Let us see the same action be taken against the conglomerates in this country, the huge businesses and manufacturers in this country that do the same thing and commit the same wrong. Let us see some of those individuals, being hauled before the courts, before the magistrates and judges in this country. Let us see that. Do not oppress the people. Your responsibility, you're tasked with the responsibility of taking care of your people, listening to their concerns, addressing their needs. And if you don't do that and you continue to fool and deceive and lie, a day is going to come when you will no longer be able to do that. Don't feel for once that social media is not playing its role. Don't for once believe that. Social media is playing its role. People are being sensitized. They're being warned and they are being informed. So if you don't take the opportunity to properly manage and direct the affairs of the people by empowering them properly and providing for them to facilitate positive growth and development in a manner in which that's going to build our country, social media is going to do it. And social media is going to do it in a way that is not manageable. It would not be done in a way that is manageable. And we would not be able to prevent people from reacting and responding negatively. And this is exactly what you're creating. The very sad thing happened in the Arab Spring. Social media. Look what happened. Look at what happened with the Arab Spring. Social media could do the very same thing here in Trinidad and Tobago. Don't underestimate the social media. Do not ever underestimate it. Because when you are not talking to the people and you are not treating with their issues and you are not treating with their concerns and you're not addressing them in the right and proper manner, social media is doing it. Social media is giving them the platform to vent and to express themselves and to deliver what they want to deliver. Be careful. Do not oppress the people. Do not oppress the poor people in this country. Because you are eventually going to feel that pinch. You are going to feel that pinch if you're not feeling it already. So without further ado, I can end this video. And once again, I beg of Allah to forgive me for anything that I've said that was wrong. If I've offended anyone in any way, I beg of His forgiveness, and I ask Him to continue to guide me and to, give me the opportunity to continue to, highlight these issues and to talk about it, to make, to try to encourage and to influence people to do the right and correct thing in this country. It's my way of trying to help, and it's my way of trying to be part of the solution rather than part of the problem. And we all should adopt that type of position, with that position. Okay, so take care. Until next time.